just keep your head down, keep your mouth shut. If you take him to court, he goes to jail, and then you're going to get nothing. There was a lot of pressure from people that I knew to just let it go, just let it go.
Kim King survived betrayal, financial abuse, and systematic silencing, and turned her fight for justice into a roadmap for women to reclaim their power.
And how did you get to this point where you wanted to become someone who helps others in this situation?
I have my entire life had this strong sense of justice and fairness back then, that I wanted to do something to help women. Every question I asked the answer was a lie. That was the beginning of me using my voice. Pursuing justice is a very important thing.
You know, the story that you went through and how you're helping other women, such important work.
Whoever is supposed to be paying would be paying, because eventually it's going to catch up to you.
Hi, welcome to Radical TV. I am Shawna. Joining me here today is Kim King. She is a voice of justice, agent of transformation, a legal advocate, and transformational author. Kim King turns personal battlegrounds into powerful platforms and change. Rising from betrayal, financial abuse, and systematic silencing, Kim forged herself into a formidable force for justice. Through the Becoming Sovereign realm, she weaves legal strategy with prophetic insight, creating tools for women to reclaim their power and rewrite their endings. Kim proves the most powerful weapon against abuse isn't silence, it's her voice. Hello, Kim, and welcome.
Hi, Shawna.
You have a powerful story, and I want you to first tell us what your method is and how you help women. You have a big job in the world, and so appreciate what you're up to.
Thank you. So my method is training women that they do have a voice and they do have resources, and where to find those resources to support themselves legally and spiritually, and just how to go about gathering evidence that they may need in court, preparing to leave, and I have a checklist of what you need to do when you're preparing to leave. And it's not always possible. I understand, sometimes women are left without notice, but the strategies still work, even if you're applying them after separation has occurred.
This is very helpful for people because when you're in a situation like that, oftentimes you're not thinking all that clearly, or you're unsure and insecure, and to have somebody that can help is a big boost.
Yeah. What I learned after my divorce, I went to law school, and I was in the midst of things that there was no help for. For child support, things like that. There are legal clinics where women can get help, but there really wasn't anything for fact patterns where children were not involved. In my own case, my children were older, and there wasn't any child support or anything like that. Both of my kids were adults at that time. And so there were really no resources. And I decided back then that I wanted to do something to help women who are owed alimony or other monies as part of their divorce settlements or divorce decrees, that would help them collect what's owed. A lot of times women wind up, on the public dole. They're having to go and get food stamps or rent assistance or things like that from public resources. And that should not be when they have ex-husbands who are, living their lives. And it's an injustice. It's just not fair that, a lot of times they are the ones who are guilty of this misconduct, and the women left behind are the ones paying the price.
And you are helping women in the world do this. And how did you get to this point where you wanted to become someone who helps others in this situation?
I have my entire life had this strong sense of justice and fairness in the world. And I think and I've wanted to be a lawyer since I was 8 years old. And largely for that reason, because things were so unfair and I saw a lot of unfairness and injustice in the world. So it's kind of a lifelong dream, but I really came to the point that I am today when I met Jess Hughes and Jason Friedman, and with their encouragement and, really telling me, and then as I've talked about it with others, so many people telling me that this really is something that is needed. And even back in law school, I wanted to open a charity that would pay for lawyers to help women who were in the situation that I had come out of. And there are so many that just can't get the help that they need because, lawyers are looking at time and making money and covering overhead and things like that. And so just meeting Jess and Jason and Drew and realizing there's another path to accomplish in even a bigger way.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what got me here today.
And what's the biggest lie that your target audience has been told that you've discovered is completely false?
Just keep your head down, keep your mouth shut. One of the things that I faced when I decided to pursue contempt proceedings against my ex because he was not paying. Well, if you take him to court, he goes to jail, and then you're going to get nothing. And so there was a lot of pressure from people that I knew to just let it go. Just let it go. You're better off if you just be patient and wait and take whatever he gives. And that's not the case. I've gotten a lot more pursuing than I have sitting back and waiting or begging. And, in the beginning, the first 3 years after he was supposed to start paying, I begged. I did. I sent text messages and I begged, please, I need this money. And it didn't make any difference at all. And I remember there was one year that I got $50 for the entire year. And there has been one other year since I started pursuing contempt proceedings, and that's when he went into hiding. He quit his job and went into hiding, and he was in hiding for like a year and a half. But that's also the first time that he was actually sentenced to jail time. And I think pursuing justice is a very important thing that we all should do.
Take me to your lowest point. What was happening in your life when you realized the old way wasn't working?
So it was our 24th anniversary. He gave me some cash. He called and wanted to go to dinner that night, anywhere I wanted to go. And I kept asking, how are you affording this? You keep telling me you're not making any money. You keep telling me there are no sales. And he kept saying, I've been saving a long time for this. This is an important anniversary. I've been saving a long time. And he did not know that I had found out about a secret bank account that he had opened and forged my name on the signature card. And the vice president of the bank had helped me gather information, gave me electronic access to the account, and I had been watching the account for about 4 months at that point in time. And so I knew the truth of what he was telling me. And he sat at dinner and he lied across the table. Every question I asked the answer was a lie. And so the next day, I called my son, who was also on the bank account, and I gave him directions for how much money to withdraw and where to distribute it. One of the things that he had done that really kind of started this particular journey, he had stolen our younger son's scholarship money. And so it was sort of a long and drawn out process to get there, but the next day I had the locks changed. I pretended like nothing was wrong when I talked to him throughout the day. And then on my way home, I called and asked what he was doing. And he said that he was grilling pork chops at his mother's house and he would be home after that. And I said, don't come home. Couple of rounds of that, and he screamed through the phone, why? And I said, because you're a liar, a cheater, and a thief. And his response was, I am not a liar. You tell me one thing I've lied about. And so I went down the list, and that was the beginning of me using my voice.
What were you telling yourself at the time, and what were you feeling in your body?
Fear. I didn't know if I could survive on my own. I didn't know where I would go. At first, I thought I would try to keep the house, and then I realized that was really kind of foolish. And so I started looking for an apartment closer to work and really just spending a lot of time grieving and also trying to plan, how am I going to do this? How will I get through this? And I had supportive people at work, and they really helped me through. I did lose a lot of friends that I thought, I wouldn't, but I did. And then I also gained some friends that I thought were really his friends, and they would come up to me and tell me about things they had seen him do. And they recognized sort of abusive behaviors, and they showed more concern than the people that, I hung out with on a regular basis that I thought were my true friends.
So what you're doing now and helping women kind of you've lived it.
I have lived it, yes.
And so there was a point in time when you were like, okay, I get this, and now I know I can help others.
Mm-hmm.
What was the turning point that got you there?
Well, I was at law school and trying to collect what he owed, and found that there were no resources for women who were owed alimony or other sums and couldn't afford an attorney. Lots of resources for women who are owed child support, but really, if it's anything other than child support, there's nothing. And so just kind of navigating that, and always having this strong sense, my entire life, I had a strong sense of fairness and justice.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided then that I wanted to do something. And my idea at the time was to have a charity that would pay sliding scale attorney fees for women who couldn't afford an attorney but needed an attorney to collect what they're owed. So otherwise, they wind up on welfare and food stamps and rent assistance and those kinds of things. And in my own case, my ex was traveling all over the United States. He wasn't working, but he was traveling all over the United States. And he would go on shopping trips and things like that. And so I knew that there was this gap in the legal system. And so fast forward a few years, and I met Jess Hughes and Jason Friedman and Drew Grolinger, and was really encouraged and uplifted by the things that they do and how they help people succeed in life. And I knew that I wanted to be a part of that. And so I mentioned this idea with Jason, and he said, if you don't do it, I'm going to. Like, no, you're not. This is mine. So,
that'll light a fire under someone, huh?
really, really pushing. So, yeah, so that's how I've come up with the becoming sovereign method.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I want to do is teach women how to find the law for yourself and how to file a garnishment, how to pursue legal proceedings, even if you can't afford an attorney. A lot of women don't know they have the right to represent themselves in court. Judges don't like it. And the first time I did it, before I was a lawyer, I got a 20-minute lecture about how pro se litigants are just the worst. And, she had allotted 15 minutes for my case because that's what I told her it would take. And then she lectured for 20 and threw her arms up in the air and said, see, I knew it would take more than 15 minutes. And I'm like, I haven't even spoken yet. Judges don't like it much, but you do have that right. And I stood my ground and I spoke. And what has come of it, initially he would appear in court whenever there was a hearing and frequently ask for a continuance, and she would always grant it. But eventually he stopped even showing up for court. And he frequently now does not show up for court. And so in learning to use my voice, it has silenced his lies.
What are common obstacles that women face out there that are working through things like this?
I would say a lack of knowledge. There's so many things that are publicly available, but the states don't advertise this is where you can go to find this. And like all of the statutes in any given state, they're public record, and there are ways to locate those. And there are also national resources where you can go and find the law for yourself. You can go and see cases that have been appealed through the state's court website. And so you can read what the courts have done in other cases. And there are ways of finding those things so that you can see what your rights are, what you need to prove in order to succeed. Just getting the word out that these resources are available is a big thing.
Mm-hmm. Who specifically do you feel called to serve?
It's ironic because the program is really geared more towards women who are in manipulative and controlling and abusive relationships. But I have also seen men in the same situation. And I want to create a safe space for women to open up and express what it is that they need. But I also think that there should be something for husbands and fathers who are going through similar circumstances.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything that breaks your heart about your industry?
Dishonest attorneys and dishonest judges. I have seen situations where an attorney makes an argument to the court. In one particular instance that comes to mind, this attorney gave the judge a copy of statute. And in code books, because they don't print every year, they send out supplements that reflect any changes to the law. And so in this particular case, the attorney gave the judge a copy of a statute and argued that the case should be dismissed because blah, blah, blah. What he didn't do was check the supplement, and he did not produce. He may have checked the supplement, I'm not sure. But he didn't produce to the judge the part of the statute as it then existed that was an exception to the argument that he was making. And I've seen attorneys who come to court without evidence and they argue that their opponent should lose because they've already addressed this. They've already provided all of these documents, blah, blah, blah. And the judge says, let me see where you answered this. Well, I don't have it with me. And that's not a successful argument before the court because the court wants to see evidence. And, I've seen judges that believe that they are God in the courtroom, and to an extent they are, but they also have to be fair and they have to at least give the appearance of impartiality. And I've seen several who don't. And that really saddens me. Before I became a lawyer, I worked for lawyers. And the first attorney that I worked for was upstanding, honest, just so much integrity. And I've seen that kind of fade. I've been in a courtroom when the judge has taken a break to hear something in chambers. Her chambers are on the opposite wall behind the judge's bench. And attorneys in the galley in front of all of these other litigants and witnesses and just people who come to watch court, because you have those people. They are acting like frat boys and talking ill about their wives and making fun of women and being so loud. And I know that the judge can hear it because I have been in the judge's chambers, that particular judge's chambers, and you can hear what's going on in the courtroom. And it's so disrespectful, and there is such a lack of respect among attorneys for the process, for other litigants. It shouldn't be. It's no longer the honorable profession that I love.
What would the world look like if everybody knew what you know?
I think men would pay what they owe. Women too. Women sometimes are responsible for paying child support or alimony. But I think whoever is supposed to be paying would be paying, because eventually it's going to catch up to you. I think people would be more honest about what it is that they have to produce and testify to. I think there would be a lot less attempts at deception in litigation.
Can you share an example with a client of yours that's gone through your program that you've helped transform?
So I had a person who reached out to me individually. She was in this state of flux because her ex had visitation with their 4-year-old who he had taken to a family reunion, and it was a great distance out of state, and so the mother had gone along not to interfere with visitation, but just because a 4-year-old shouldn't be traveling alone, you know? And so she had been present when certain family members at this family reunion were very dismissive and rude to the 4-year-old because they disagreed with a decision that the mother had made, and like would not treat the 4-year-old with the same love and respect and welcoming that they did other children in the family, and really just rejected this little kid. And she was so upset. And so I walked her through. She had been afraid to go to court because she thought he could take custody away. And so we walked through the facts of her case, and when I explained what was likely to happen based on the facts that she had given me, she realized that she really had nothing to fear. And so she was going to contact an attorney in her state and pursue her rights.
What's possible for someone who fully commits to your approach?
They can learn where to find things. They can learn what the law is, how to find the law for themselves in their state. They can learn how to garnish without having to have an attorney involved. And that's something that anyone can do regardless of, a law degree or not. And it's a simple process to do that. They can learn not to fear what may happen in court. They'll be prepared for what they may face, and hopefully in some cases they won't. Hopefully in some cases they will face certain outcomes, and how to negotiate if you have a lawyer, how to make the best use of the money that you're paying for an attorney, preparing things for the attorney, what matters and what doesn't when you talk to your attorney.
Do you have an ideal client that you like to work with personally?
I really don't. I've always liked to try to help anyone. I was, whoever the underdog was in school, that was my friend, And I was also, part of student council and member of a lot of clubs and stuff in high school. And so really my friends have run the gamut all of my life. If there's something I can do to help someone, I want to do it.
And what can people expect when they work with you directly?
I don't really have that much direct relationship with my students. It's more going through the toolbox and teaching how to use the tools. I had made an exception for a couple of people, but I don't really have that much one-to-one contact.
How can people connect with you and learn more?
So I'm on Instagram. It's Becoming Sovereign Official. I am in the process of getting the program launched probably December, January. In the meantime, I have a book coming out on Amazon, hopefully very, very soon. It is called Unshakable Clarity. And it is a little bit personal story. It's a little bit declarations. It's a little bit of a workbook and walking you through steps relevant to the things in that chapter and things to ponder. And I'm excited about getting that launched on Amazon soon.
Wow. Such, the story that you went through and how you're helping other women, such important work.
Thank you. Thank you.
And another couple more questions. What has changed in your business or life since you started working with the radical company that you didn't expect?
I've had a lot of personal growth myself, just going through and writing not only the tools in the toolbox, the Unshakable Clarity book that I wrote recently. I'm working on an allegory, which is something I've always wanted to do and just really did not know how, to be quite honest. And I was, creative writer in high school, in college, and then started working in law offices, and you kind of lose that creativity part of writing. And so I've gotten that back to a certain extent, and writing an allegory is something that I always wanted to do. And I've gotten, I think, 10 or 12 chapters done on that, and just need to clean that up and see what gaps there are and fill those in. And that's something that I'm really, really excited to get out there.
Mm-hmm.
And walking through something sort of like Pilgrim's Progress, and but from the standpoint of a woman who is in an abusive or manipulative or narcissistic sort of relationship.
Mm-hmm. And if someone was considering the Radiverse, what would you tell them about your experience?
I would say it has been worth every minute, and it is life-changing. It has been life-changing for me. And just moving into the realm of possibility. This is something that I probably would not have ever finished had it not been for Jess and Jason and Drew kind of pushing me along and encouraging me along. And all of the people in the Radiverse have been so uniquely accepting and encouraging, and I've never been in a community like this.
Mm-hmm.
And I would encourage anyone who's interested, just do it.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Kim King, thank you for joining us on Radical TV today.
Thank you, Shawna. I appreciate it.